Starting to see people come in. I hope. There they go. There goes the numbers. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to give it a few minutes for everybody to log on and get situated. Hopefully you can see all of us. I hope you're doing well this morning on, what is today, Tuesday, June 9th. Wherever you are, I know I've got some people signed on in California, and I know I got a couple on the East Coast, so it's probably a little later in the day for you. So I'm just going to give it another minute or so, because I know that we have quite a few registered, and I'm not seeing everybody just logged on just yet. But I'm not going to wait too long so we can move forward. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started, and as people come in, hopefully they will hopefully they won't miss too much from what we started to do. So thanks for joining us this morning. And with, you know, college fairs and rep visits and all of those things being canceled across the country, it's really important for you to take advantage of various opportunities like this to begin your college search and application process. And that was the reason why I put this together and planned this college talk series, because I believe that knowledge is power. So with things changing so quickly from day to day, sometimes it feels like from hour to hour, things are changing right now. Keeping up with all of that information and helps you make educated decisions. So that's why I put this together. And I can't thank the reps and the colleges enough for agreeing to participate and be part of this series and to present to the students and to give them as much information as they can get during this time of just uncertainty, you know, especially for the class of 2021 with the amount of changes that are coming at them and trying to understand and grasp what that looks like. So once again, the purpose was to bring you some geographically and institutionally diverse colleges and universities, so you can start to explore and understand what you're looking for and what you think you want to get out of college. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our presenters for today. We have Santa Clara University, Hillsdale College, and Texas Christian University. I'm going to read a little bio on each one of our presenters. From Santa Clara University, we have Claire Kreft. Is that correct, Claire? Did I say that correctly? Good. Claire was raised in a small beach town in Santa Cruz County and has been lucky enough to live and work in cities across the country. She has a deep passion for education and student development and has accompanied students on almost every step of their college-going journey. First as a teacher, and then as a college access counselor, and then as an assistant resident director, and now as the assistant, or currently as the assistant director of undergraduate admissions at Santa Clara University. She enjoys helping students and families learn more about Santa Clara, as well as the greater higher education landscape, with a special commitment to underrepresented communities. So thanks, Claire, for joining us. Next, we have Amanda Hottinger. Good, I said it correctly. And she's from Texas Christian University. And she's the regional admissions officer for TCU based in Northern California. In this role, she specializes in supporting students through the TCU admissions process, reviewing admissions applications and telling students about TCU's student experience. She believes, that what draws students from California to TCU is the strong sense of community, school spirit, and their focus on student-centered educational experiences. So thank you, Amanda, for joining us. And last but not least, Kelly Kane from Hillsdale College. She's entering her 7th year as a member of Hillsdale College's admissions office. She serves as the director of the West Coast recruitment. She works with students from Alaska, Arizona, Southern California, Hawaii, and she also including various high school visits, conducting admissions interviews, and reading applications for admission. She graduated from Hillsdale College in 2014 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in American Studies and an interdisciplinary program. She resides in Portland, Oregon, with her husband, a fellow Hillsdale graduate. And outside of work, she enjoys playing with her dog, which I think is a new addition to the family. I think it was a COVID puppy addition. And trying new recipes and from Inga, is it Ina Gratton's? I don't know that one.
Ina Garden, the beer cook Contessa. I'm a big fan. I own all of her cookbooks.
And reading and running both at a painfully slow pace, she says. All right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started with Claire. She's presenting first, and then I believe after that is TCU, and then Hillsdale, and then I will be giving a small short presentation on my services, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. All right, so here we go.
Awesome, thank you so much. So hi everyone, welcome. Once again, my name is Claire and I am the Assistant Director for Undergraduate Admission at Santa Clara. As you heard in my bio, I've been with college students on a lot of different parts of the journey. So I did actually started as a middle school teacher, then high school, then a college counselor, and then I did work with students as they were moving in their first year to a college campus. Now I'm working with our staff to bring students to our campus in the admission office. So really excited to be with you here today. Happy to talk about anything you have questions about. So what I'm going to talk about in terms of Santa Clara today is first I'm going to start with kind of the updates and changes that we've made as a campus in light of COVID-19. And then to get that out in the open first, then I'm going to move into what makes our campus special. And then a little bit about the nitty-gritty of the application process and how you can put your best foot forward if you choose to apply to Santa Clara. So we will start with the COVID-19 updates. So some things to keep in mind, right? There have been a lot of changes that have happened to you beyond your control. We are well aware of that. So one is that the decision for students' current courses, sometimes that decision, if they are getting an actual letter grade or a numerical grade or pass fail, is not your decision, right? A lot of times that decision went to the school or to the school district even. So we are going to be completely understanding around that. If students have a pass fail course, it's not going to look worse or be held as less rigorous than a student who had a course with a numerical grade. So don't worry about that. We are also going to be a lot more thoughtful around students whose schedules changed during this term. Whether that was dropping and adding classes or a different type of accommodation, we recognize that this was a crazy time and one that was completely beyond your control. So don't worry if your schedule or your grades look different this term. We recognize that those changes were beyond your control. Some other big news is that we have decided to go test optional. So for the next 2 years, as a campus, we will be test optional. What that means is that you do not need to submit either the SAT or the ACT to complete your application. If you were able to already take one of those tests or in the future are able to take them and you're proud of your scores, go ahead and submit them. They strengthen your application. But you will not, your application will not be any lesser if you don't have those scores associated with it. So as a test optional school, that means that you no longer need to submit those scores to complete your application and have it be reviewed in full. Some other things that I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but just to keep in mind is that COVID-19 is going to be a hot topic when it comes to writing your essay. And so think about the best way for you to tell your own story, right? Not the general story of the context, but how to tell your own story. And I'm going to talk about a little of the tweaks that we made to our supplemental questions as well. We are also aware that COVID-19 is going to affect the ways you're able to involve yourself in your community right now. Don't worry about that. There's other ways to show what you care about, what you're passionate about. And then something else that is really important on our campus that I want to mention first and foremost is that we are what's called a demonstrated interest campus, meaning we want to see how much interest and how much attempt you have made to get to know who we are. Because we are a Common App school, which I'll talk about a little bit later, it's easy to apply to us. So we want to know, are you applying to us because it's easy, or are you applying because you are genuinely interested and want to attend Santa Clara? So something I'm putting in the chat right now, there you go, is a link to take a step towards demonstrating your interest. It actually just submits an interest form to us. with information about you, and also allows us to connect you to other parts of Santa Clara that you might be interested in. So now we're going to move on, and I'm going to talk about what it means to be a Jesuit campus at Santa Clara. We are a Jesuit school. There's about 27 of them across the country and even more globally. Being a Jesuit school, yes, means we are a Catholic institution, and that can sometimes make students a little bit wary, but something I really want you to know is that as a Jesuit institution, our focus is on building community and on a call to action for social justice. So our focus is what we call cura personalis, or the idea that you are a whole person with multiple parts of your identity. We want to foster all of those parts. You are not just a student when you come to our campus. So we want to educate your mind, body, and your spirit. Some highlights of a Jesuit education are our core curriculum, which includes some action-based courses in civic engagement and ethics. This core curriculum, the idea is that you are actually going to have a liberal arts founded education when you graduate, even though you're able to specialize in whatever you choose to major in. So students will have taken courses from across different departments on campus by the time they've graduated. And you'll see this in a number of disciplines. So there is a requirement in the sciences, there is a requirement in the arts, there is a requirement in theology, right? It's not a class that you are told you have to take like high school. You still choose what class you want to take. It's just that we want to make sure you're covering different departments by the time you've graduated. So for example, we do have a theology requirement. You have to take 3 theology classes before you graduate. There's over 100 classes you could take to satisfy that requirement. So if you wanted to take Catholicism 101 or Buddhism 101 or Taoism 101, go for it. But you don't have to. A lot of our students actually like to take classes that challenge the notion of theology and speak more to spirituality and the discernment process that a person goes through. So some of the ones I hear our students taking that I think are really incredible are the theology of marriage, the theology of death, and magician, athletes, and God. So it's not just your standard what you think of a religion class, right? We really want you to push the boundaries of self-reflection and self-exploration. Our student body itself, only 50% of our students self-identify as Catholic. So don't think that it's one overwhelming way of thought on our campus. Some other highlights of a Jesuit education are our study abroad and our immersion programs. So this idea of challenging who is your community? Is it the people that you live with? Is it the people that you come in contact every day? Or is it more of a global community? The Jesuits truly believe in a global community and caring for our neighbors across the world. So at Santa Clara, study abroad is actually very popular. On average, about 25% of each class will study abroad, whereas the national average at most campuses is more of between 5 and 10% of the student body. So we do make it very accessible. All students are eligible to study abroad, no matter what major you're in or no matter what school. At the end of the day, it's all about building community and about students finding what they're passionate about and being able to pursue that. So how do students do that? Right now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the logistics of what it looks like to be a student at Santa Clara and our size. We are a medium-sized institution. So in terms of our undergraduate population, we have about 5,500 students. Our overall school population is closer to 9,000 with about 3,500 graduate students. We are an undergraduate focused campus. That does not mean that we neglect our grad students. They are very much a beloved part of our community. But the reality is that anything we offer on campus is available to our undergraduate students as well. That includes internships, that includes research. We have first year students engaged in research with their professors in labs on campus. That sometimes at larger schools is a lot harder to come by. A big way that students see this play out is in what they see in the classroom, that smaller size, right? So our average class size is 23. The majority of your classes are going to be between 15 and 30 people. Less than 20% of our classes on campus have more than 40 students in them. So we really do pride ourselves on that intimate learning experience. Beyond working with your faculty in the classroom, we have an 11-to-1 student to faculty ratio. So there's a number of staff and faculty across campus who want to work with you in other areas, whether that is through a community service action project, or for example, in our Forage Garden, which is a fully student-run sustainability garden on campus where you can plant and harvest your own vegetables. So there's just a lot of ways to engage, and there are a lot of faculty and staff that are there to guide you along the way. Some stats that we always like to point out that I think are really important for students to consider when they're thinking about where they want to go to school is our retention rate and our graduation rate. So our 95% retention rate means that after year one, majority of our students are deciding they want to come back and stay at Santa Clara. Even more important is our 88% four-year graduation rate. Many colleges, when they publish a graduation rate, actually publish it in a 6-year term, but our commitment to you is graduating in 4 years. Because we are a quarter system school, meaning students take 3 sets of classes per year instead of the traditional 2 with semesters, we actually have a number of students that are able to graduate early, so in 3.5 or 3 years. A lot of opportunities for you to really tailor your educational experience to exactly what you want it to be at Santa Clara. The next thing I'm going to talk about, which is something really unique about our campus, is where we're located. So we are in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area. The photo you see in front of you is actually looking into San Francisco, so not necessarily where we're at, but a lot of our students do get into San Francisco very easily. Something also to consider is our geodiversity on campus. A lot of people often think of us as more of a regional university, which is absolutely not true. About 55% of our students are from California, and then 45% are from out of state or international. So we have students from across the country and across the globe that come to call Santa Clara home. As I mentioned, internships are a big opportunity on our campus. Being in the heart of Silicon Valley aids us in doing that. So already 80% of students will have held at least one paid internship, but by the time they graduate, that number is slowly climbing. It's also higher for our students in the School of Business and the School of Engineering. There's a great return on investment for Santa Clara. So about 86% of our 86% of our student body that graduates will be employed full-time in a graduate program or in a service program within 6 months of graduating from Santa Clara. In the Silicon Valley, there are so many companies looking to come hire Santa Clara University grads. Some of our top employers are Google, Apple, Cisco, and Facebook, and Lockheed Martin. There are so many other companies beyond that. Something else to think about is that even though a lot of these companies are headquartered in the Silicon Valley, they have offices across the country and even across the globe. So there are opportunities for you to make those connections on our campus and then take that opportunity somewhere else. Something else about the location, we're just in a beautiful part of Northern California. So for those of you students that are joining us from the Central Coast, I find that part to be one of my favorite parts of the state and of the whole country, but we're pretty lucky up in Northern California too. Students that want to go surfing, we can get them to Santa Cruz. Students that want to go hiking, we can get them to Big Sur. Skiing, we get them to Tahoe, right? We're close to a lot of the natural beauty that California has to offer. And we're also only a 15-minute or 10 to 15-minute ride from the San Jose airport. It's actually the same exit as us when you get off the highway. So we have a free shuttle to take students to and from the airport to make traveling really easy. So now with the last couple minutes, let's talk about the actual application process. I apologize that there's a lot on this slide. Wanted to be able to fit it in and for accessibility reasons have you be able to see the text, but I'm going to walk you through it as well. So we are a Common App school, as I mentioned. We are, while we were founded as a liberal arts institution, so the College of Arts and Sciences is our largest program, we are actually a research institution. So we have multiple schools that students can be a member of. As an undergraduate student, you choose if you're going to apply to the College of Arts and Sciences, the Levy School of Business, or the School of Engineering. Something to keep in mind, it is the same application process for all 3 schools. It's the same team of admission counselors reading those applications, but the selectivity is a little bit different because the size of each program is different. The College of Arts and Sciences is our largest program at about 55% of our undergrads. The Levy School of Business is our middle-sized program at about 30%, and the School of Engineering is our most selective at about 15% of our student body. So as I mentioned, the application is the same, but the way we look at your application is going to differ based on which school you're applying to. A common question I get from students is how important is it when I select my major? Yes, it's important because we want to know what you want to study, but at Santa Clara, the most important choice you have to make is which school you are applying to. You can apply undeclared to either of the 3 schools, but you have to select a school. So something to keep in mind, if you think you want to do business or you think you want to do engineering, you should apply directly to that school, to the School of Business or to the School of Engineering. If you want to transfer out and go instead to the College of Arts and Sciences once you get to campus, that's very easy because it's our larger school. But if you start in arts and sciences and then want to transfer in engineering, it's a lot harder because there's a lot fewer seats available for that. So just something to keep in mind. As a final overview of what you're going to be submitting to us when you apply, in your application, we're looking at both your stats and your story. So the stats here are numbers from the current first years on campus. This is the mid 50% of their stats, okay? So this is their GPA and their test scores. Now, remember, we are now test optional. So these numbers are going to not only shift, but not be looked at in the same exact way, okay? So remember, if you don't submit an SAT or ACT, that's fine. It is not going to hurt your application. This is just so that you can see what our current first years on campus, what their stats do look like. So we're going to see your GPA still, right? and your high school transcript and your school report from your high school counselor. Keep in mind that we know what classes you had the opportunity to take and then which classes you chose to take. A big part of this stats portion that doesn't often get mentioned is your rigor or your strength of schedule. Especially now that we have gone test optional, increasing your rigor on your high school schedule is going to show us ways that you are challenging yourself if you choose not to submit a test score. So these are just other options or other parts of your application to think about. We do unweight all GPAs. So these are unweighted GPA measurements that you're seeing on this chart. We recognize that high schools all have different grading systems. And so in order to kind of minimize the changes between them, we unweight all high school GPAs. Now to talk a little bit about the story before I pass it on to Amanda and TCU. These are the parts of your application where you have the most impact in. Your voice gets to shine through because this is your words telling us what you care about. So of your story, you're going to share your activities, your community service or volunteering. So what you're doing outside of the classroom, your extracurriculars essentially, right? Keep in mind that if you do something, we want to hear about it, right? Don't think that it has to just be a formalized club that you are a part of. If there's a research project that you're doing on your own, tell us about that. If you're spending time on it, that's important to you. We want to hear about it. The writing pieces that you're going to submit to us. So your personal statement and your supplemental questions. The personal statement is going to go to any college you apply to through the Common Application. I always tell students, after you've written it, please go back and highlight every sentence that has to do with you as the subject. So you doing something, you responding to something, you changing or growing from something. And if that is not at least 50% of your essay, you need to go back and rewrite. I have read some beautiful personal statements about someone's very influential grandma. By the end of the application, I want to admit the grandma, but I didn't learn anything about the student. So please make sure you are keeping the focus on yourself. The supplemental questions only go to Santa Clara. So at Santa Clara, we ask 2 questions, and we essentially ask, what have you done to get to know us as a campus? And this talks about demonstrated interest. And how do your values align with ours? What are you going to bring to our campus? With the supplemental questions, you do need to do a little bit of research about Santa Clara, right? We want to know, how have you gotten to know us as an institution, and how do you see yourself as part of our community? One tip I will give you is that whenever I have a student on the bubble, either on the bubble of awarding a scholarship or on the bubble of awarding admission to our institution, the first thing I always go to are their supplemental questions. Did this student fight for themselves to convince me that they see themselves as a member of my community? Some students do that really beautifully, and it's easy for me to fight for them when I'm showing their application to the rest of our committee. Students that don't, it's hard to fight for them, right? So if there's a school, especially if it's Santa Clara, that you really care about and you have to answer supplemental questions, make sure you do your due diligence for those. The last 2 pieces are optional parts, right? So you're not required to put this anywhere on the application, but this is something that we do take into consideration. So the first is demonstrated interest. Given that you can't visit campus right now, there are so many other ways to look at Santa Clara. On our website, if you search virtual SCU, we have curated an entire list of digital content for you to check out. We also have 3 times a week information sessions that you can attend with a counselor and 2 current students. You can ask live questions. It's a great way to interact. These are all ways you can demonstrate your interest, right? Reaching out to your admission counselor, which for many of you would be me, asking questions and starting that conversation before you apply. That's really what demonstrated interest is about. The additional information section, this is completely optional. It's on the Common Application. I think this is the most overlooked and underutilized part of the application. This is where you can give context. So did you fail a class, or did you get a worse grade in a class than you anticipated? Tell us about it, right? Give your side of the story. Give us how this fits into the narrative of you as a high school student. Did you have to choose between taking AP Bio and AP Chem because your high school didn't allow you to take both, right? Tell us about that. Was there a natural disaster, something that you were dealing with that really impacted your life? And that's important to know, but you couldn't figure out where to tell that in your application. Put it here in additional information. This is for context that is helpful in us evaluating your application, but doesn't quite fit anywhere else. It's not an essay. You can put bullet points in if you want, right? It's just more information to give to us, especially in light of COVID-19, right? Think about how instead of making your personal statement all about how you responded to COVID-19, a lot of students are going to do that, right? Keep your personal statement unique and about you and about what you're passionate about, and then tell us that other information that's important to know in the additional information section. It's really a way to maximize your words and utilize your voice in multiple ways to paint a more full picture of who you are. So with that, I'm going to pass it along to Amanda and TCU, and I look forward to answering any questions later.
Claire, I just want to say that that was very well said, especially when you were talking about the admissions process. I think that what I will say when we get to TCU's admissions process is going to be very similar. So to build off of what Claire said, I just want to highlight and hopefully empower the students in the room that you have a lot of control in the admissions process. So you're going to choose what schools you apply to. We don't pick that for you, you do. You choose what school you'll attend at the end of the process. And most importantly, you get to choose what you put in your application and how you advocate for yourself in all of the ways that Claire kind of talked about when she talked about the Santa Clara admissions process. So as you guys are listening to us talk about our institutions and as you guys are preparing your college application process, just remember that you have a lot more control in this process than you realize. The one piece you may not have control in is that admissions decision. But again, you control where you apply, you control what you put in your application, and ultimately at the end of the day, you control what school you attend. So thank you, Claire. That was all very well said, and I just loved listening to talk about that. But now I'm going to talk about TCU. So TCU stands for Texas Christian University. We're based in Fort Worth, Texas, and I'll talk a little bit more about Fort Worth, but I really do think what makes TCU unique and why students look at TCU is because we provide students with that large college campus feel, that smaller academic environment at a medium-sized university. So what do I mean by that? Well, on the next slide, you'll see that TCU provides students that big college campus experience. We have the big time resources. We are have access to research and creative inquiry. So if you're a student who knows you want to get your hands wet in a hands-on experience, you want to do something creative during your college experience, you want to do research, our academic programs and the structure that we have as a liberal arts institution allows students to do that, but we also allow students to do some big time research and big time projects. We also have access to internships and some really great career preparedness opportunities for our students. And then we have an endowment of over $1 billion, which really supports the future of TCU students. But we're also have the big kind of athletic community. So we do really feel like that large college campus when it comes to school spirit. We're in the Big 12 conference, but we're actually the smallest university in the Big 12 conference. And so that means that we're able to provide students with that smaller academic environment. And the next slide will kind of show you guys a little bit more about what I mean when I say that. We are a medium-sized university with a little over 9,400 undergraduates on TCU's campus. But academically, we focus on a liberal arts and sciences background. Now, when a student applies to TCU, they do select a major, but you're never locked into a major. So students can change their majors and they can change kind of what college they're a part of. So for TCU students, that means that those first few years at TCU, students are often focusing on our liberal arts and sciences core curriculum. We want students to become ethical leaders and responsible citizens in the global community. So that means that we're going to encourage students to take courses in creative inquiry. We're going to encourage students to take courses in diversity, equity, inclusion. We want our students to take courses that challenge them and that help build their creative thinking. And of course, TCU was founded by a religious institution. And while we don't require students to sign a statement of faith, attend chapel services, or really participate in religious life on campus, we do ask students to take one religion course. And that one religion course can be anything they choose to take. So students can take a philosophical-based religion course. They can take a religion course that is a little bit more focused on one religion. And then we also have, global religion professors. So students can take courses in religions they don't know very much about. So that's a big part of that liberal arts tradition. Our average class size is about 27 students, and we have a 13-to-1 student faculty ratio. Our goal at TCU is to help you get to know your professor. We want your professor to be a mentor. We want them to help support you kind of as you pursue the academic process, and we want them to be there as a resource for you. But we also feel that TCU students learn just as much outside of the classroom as they do inside of the classroom. So the experiences that students have on our traditional college campus is one of the ways that students take that TCU experience. They build their leadership skills, they build a lot of the skills that they're learning within the classroom. And because of that, we do ask TCU students to live on campus for the first 2 years. So that TCU college experience is going to be very traditional. And on the next slide, I do have a few photos of kind of our residence halls so you can get an idea of what that experience looks looks like. But by living on campus, we know that our students are able to get actively involved in our community, join clubs and organizations, and we also know that students are going to be more academically successful if they're living on campus in the campus community. So students have the ability to join one of our 200 clubs and organizations. We have religious-based clubs and organizations. We have Greek life on TCU's campus, but we also have clubs and organizations that are athletically connected in the arts. So if you're somebody who enjoys music, choir, performance, anything like that, we have clubs related to that. And then we have clubs and organizations that just plan events on our campus for students to get involved in. One of my favorite student clubs actually planned an event for students to actively engage in just fun activities on campus. They brought a bunch of snow to campus last winter, and students, man-made snow, of course, and students went sledding just for the fun of it on our campus, which is kind of weird in Texas because we just really don't get a lot of snow. And we had over 800 events in the duration of the school year last year. So there really is that kind of active campus community. And we think it's really important for our students to be actively involved in our campus community, but we also think it's really important for our students to start thinking about their future. So in the next slide, you guys will see a little bit more information about what we do to prepare our students for success after their time at TCU. Our academic programs and the style of our academic programs are really there to help support students kind of through that academic preparedness, but also it is focused on making sure that our students are ready for the careers once they're done with TCU. And so TCU's career services is really designed around advising students, connecting with students, and helping them identify where they want to go once they're done with their degree at TCU. So each academic college has each degree granting college has a career advisor there to support students as they consider their options once they're done with TCU. And the cool thing about these career advisors is they can really help students look outside of the box of what they think their career could be and really focus on what they want to do with their career, what they want to do professionally, and help them identify internship opportunities, help them identify job opportunities that they can apply for. We also want to support students who are looking at graduate school or professional school once they're done with TCU. So if you're a student who knows that your undergraduate degree is not going to be the last degree you get, and you know that you want to go to medical school, law school, you're considering going on and getting a master's degree, maybe even a PhD once you're done with that, we really want to support students through that process. We do have advising programs for students who are thinking about going into the pre-health professional program. So if you know you want to go to medical school or anything like that, we have a whole institute there to support students through that pathway, pre-law advising programs, and of course our academic advisors are there to really support students as they pursue graduate programs and then degrees beyond that. So what we want to do is make sure that we're supporting students where they're at and what their goals are. A couple of statistics to kind of help you get an idea of that is 85% of our students are employed or in graduate school within 3 months of graduation. 4 out of 5 TCU students will do an internship while they're at TCU, and often those students are doing that in the local DFW area. And we do have a scholarship available for students who receive an unpaid internship. We never want you to turn down an opportunity that could help you land a job or the career path, or help you understand your future career path a little bit more because it's unpaid. So that scholarship money is there to support students through that process. And we're really lucky to be in the DFW area. And on the next slide, you guys will get to see a little bit more about why the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area is a great place to be. Now, if you're thinking the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, you're probably thinking the DFW airport, which is one of the largest airports in the country, and many people have layovers at the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But outside of the DFW airport is the fourth largest metropolitan area in the country, and Fort Worth itself is the 13th largest city. What's cool about Fort Worth is it has that kind of traditional Texas vibe with a modern culture vibe. So you have the stockyards, which is the historic stockyards where they used to sell all of the cattle through those big cattle drives. We have Billy Bob's, which is the largest honky tonk in the country. If you want to learn how to two-step and line dance, Thursday is college night, so TCU students can go and take those lessons for free. But then we also have the second largest museum district outside of the Smithsonian. The Modern and the Kimball Art Museum are two fantastic museums that our students love to go and explore and enjoy. We have a phenomenal botanical garden, zoo, and then Bass Hall brings some awesome ballets, symphonies, orchestras, and operas to our community, so students are able to enjoy the cultural offerings of Fort Worth. So it does have that nice balance for our students. And since our campus is traditional, students still get that traditional college experience, but they are in a larger city environment. So before I pass this on to Kelly, I do want to talk a little bit about our application process. TCU reviews students holistically. So when students apply to TCU, they can apply under the Common Application, the Coalition Application, or on the Apply Texas application, and then we also have our own application. We have all these different applications for students because we want to provide access to students. We don't want you to have to start new applications or do anything like that to apply to TCU. So we don't have a preference what application you submit to TCU. So pick the application that is the easiest for you as a student to submit. We have a couple of deadlines students can apply under. November 1st is our early action, early decision deadline, and then February 1st is our regular decision deadline. On the next slide, you can kind of see our holistic admissions process broken down. About 2/3 of what we're looking at is going to be academics. We do look at your kind of unweighted academic GPA, but we're also going to look at the courses you've taken. We're going to look at academic trends over time. We are going to be test optional for the class applying for the fall of 2021. So just keep that in the back of your mind as you're considering applying to TCU. You do not need to submit your test scores for the admissions process, and you also don't need to submit your test scores for the scholarship process. So we are completely kind of a test optional institution. It's not going to affect your application if you choose not to submit those scores. And the biggest reason is because we do review students very holistically. So kind of like what Claire said, we're going to look at all of the other rich pieces in your application to consider you as a student at TCU. And just like Santa Clara, we are a demonstrated interest institution. And I really think that Claire did such a great job kind of describing what that means. It's very similar in that process. We're going to consider the interest that you put forth, but just keep in mind that visiting campus, students are often asking questions like, do I need to visit campus to demonstrate interest? And the answer to that is no. There are so many rich ways that you as a student can demonstrate interest. And one of the biggest ones is signing up for our mailing list. And I'm going to add that in the chat box for you. Another great way to connect with TCU and demonstrate interest is to take advantage of our virtual offerings. We have some wonderful virtual offerings for students, some unique things that we've never really been able to provide students before, like access to some of our departments and areas of study. And so by taking part in some of those information sessions, it's a great way to tell TCU that you're interested in us, but also for you to learn a little bit more about our institution. So I'm going to include both of those links in the chat box kind of after my presentation, so you guys can go and explore our opportunities a little bit more. My favorite part as an admissions counselor is the holistic piece of the admissions process. I love getting to know you when I read your application. So as you're working on the application and as you're working on your essays, as you are working on your co-curricular activities, and as you're working on your personal supplement statements, just remember that there is somebody who's going to read it, and we want to get to know you more in the process. This is your chance to advocate for yourself. I'm not looking for anything in particular. And I think Claire said that really great when she talked about your co-curricular activities in the resume piece of the application. We want to know everything that interests you. And a lot of students are really worried about their summer plans, or this year having events canceled, summer camps canceled, activities canceled, all of that stuff. Just keep in mind that that is the kind of stuff that we want to see in the application, or that's not the kind of stuff that we just want to see in the application process. If you've taken up knitting, for example, maybe you've been learning recipes with your mom during this time. Maybe you've been going on daily hikes or walks around your neighborhood. Those are activities that admission counselors do want to see, and we want to know that kind of stuff. So don't feel like because all of your organized activities have been canceled, your resume is going to be lacking. I actually think there's a lot of rich things you can put in your resume during this time. And also understand that colleges do know that your resume may not look the same this year than it would have looked in a normal year as well. Just like many colleges and universities like TCU are accepting pass-fail credit, and we understand that there are so many pieces of your application that aren't going to be normal. We also know that the resume may not look the same this year, and that's okay. Finally, the next slide I want to share with you before we move on to Kelly is going to be our scholarship process. We do have merit-based scholarships that students can apply for when they apply for admissions. Just keep in mind, we will be considering students test optional students for scholarships. We just don't know exactly what that will look like. So your test scores don't need to be submitted to be considered for scholarships, but we just don't know exactly what that threshold is going to look like, and we won't know that until fall. I'm going to put more information in the chat box. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. And Kelly, you're up next.
Thanks, Amanda. I think we're going to hear some of the same themes again about how we review applications with Hillsdale. But again, my name is Kelly Kane, and I am an alum of Hillsdale, so that might come through a little bit in some of the stories I might throw in today. But Hillsdale is a small, private, independent, classical liberal arts Christian college located in southern Michigan, as you can see there. So when I say we're small, we're about 1,460 students. We are a member of Colleges That Change Lives, or CTCL, if you've heard of that group of liberal arts colleges before. We're also ranked a top 65 best liberal arts college in America by US News and World Report. And then we do proudly have an A+ financial health rating from Forbes. So those are sort of a few starting, I guess, dashboard things to know about Hillsdale. On the next slide, you'll see some of our admissions statistics about what the average current freshman who just ended their freshman year at Hillsdale looks like. So when you look at those numbers, I want to underscore two things. First, just like Claire and Amanda were saying, that their institutions do a holistic admissions process, so does Hillsdale. So we're looking at all the pieces of your application, transcript, not only for the grades received, but for also the curriculum that was available to you that you chose, the curriculum that was required of you, looking at those pieces. We also look at your test scores, so ACT or SAT, the resume, so looking at not only what you've been involved with, but the duration of those involvements, any recognitions or leadership positions. 2 letters of recommendation that are academic in nature that you can send additional more character references if you like as well, and then the writing supplement. So we are also on the Common Application, and then we do also have an application on Hillsdale's website directly. So our writing supplement is going to look at the main essay that you submit plus 2 short answers that go directly to Hillsdale. Ours ask you to talk about why you're interested in a liberal arts education, and what you're hoping to add to the community and how you're hoping to grow from the community at Hillsdale. So we want to see that you've spent some time thinking about those ideas and that your application's been intentional to Hillsdale. So when we look at that application, we're doing that holistic review. And I think one thing a student could do if they want to be as competitive as possible for being admitted to Hillsdale and for earning merit scholarship is to do an admissions interview. That's a part of our process that's optional but highly recommended. And that's something that can be done during a visit to campus in Michigan, or also right now virtually. And then we do travel quite a bit. So I meet with students throughout coffee shops and bookstores while I'm traveling to meet one-on-one for an admissions interview. I promise it's not a grilling, true false, fill in the, bubbles on a Scantron sort of admissions interview. It's really just about getting to know you, your college search, how you're hoping to grow in the college years as well, and how Hillsdale might be a good fit for that. In addition, you'll see that about 70% of our students come from out of state. I know we have quite a few Californians in the crowd right now. So specifically of our 1,460 students, about 80 are from California on average. And then before we go any further, second thing I should mention about the admissions process actually is that right now we are not test optional. We are still kind of waiting to see what SAT and ACT options may be available for August through October. If those test dates are canceled, we'll continue to reevaluate our process and at that time decide how the admission and scholarship consideration might change. But because we don't base merit scholarships solely upon the test scores, it is possible for students to earn test scores who are below those averages, for example, then we will continue to modify our process. So before we go any further, I want to give a quick history lesson about Hillsdale. So Hillsdale was founded as a college in 1844. And when we were founded, we were the first college in American history to be founded with an anti-discrimination clause in our charter. So we are the first college that prohibited discrimination based on race, religion, sex, and country of origin. So what that looked like in history, for example, is that the second and third women to ever have a liberal arts degree in America are from Hillsdale College. So as an alum, that's a part of our history that I'm really proud of. And what is that? 1844, that's quite a few years ago. What does that have to do with you today? So I think the history explains two things. So number one, our faith atmosphere. So you heard me say we're a Christian non-sectarian school. And what that means is that while we're a Christian college and the college itself is Christian, we don't require our students to be. That's a part of the college's identity, but we think being Christian means protecting religious liberty for all people. So there is a chapel on campus that our clubs use and the choir performs in there. There is a Western theology course that all students take that I'll talk about in a moment, but you don't have to sign a statement of faith to attend. You're not required to go to any sort of church service to be at Hillsdale. It's sort of that we make everything available to you and you get to choose if you want to participate or not. And the second reason our history is important is that we've decided to be a very independent and private college. So we do not accept any government funding. We do all private financial aid and scholarship. So when you want to be considered for financial aid, you do have to apply directly with Hillsdale or with the CSS profile. And so we have our own piggy bank and our own endowment and our own scholarship funds that we then pour out into scholarships. So the best example is probably the GI Bill. We can't actually spend the GI Bill at Hillsdale, but instead any honorably discharged veteran who's admitted to Hillsdale automatically gets a private full ride scholarship from Hillsdale, and they could use the GI Bill for grad school if they preferred. So it's just all private financial aid, just a little quirky, and I'll talk a bit more about scholarships and financial aid later. So the next thing I want to talk about is our approach to the liberal arts. We do take a more classical approach. So what that means is that we're going to take this traditional approach of what has Greco-Roman and Judeo-Christian culture sort of passed down. What have people like Aristotle and Dante and Shakespeare said creates a healthy diet for your mind. And in practice, that comes out through Hillsdale's core curriculum. So you can see there's 18 classes listed that students either take at Hillsdale or meet those requirements through credit by exam like AP, IB, CLEP, or transfer credit from a community college or another four-year university. And our goal is that we want students to spend time in a liberal arts foundation so that we become a critical, creative, flexible problem solver, that you're someone who people will go to for ideas, that you've spent time reading and wrestling with ideas, that you've spent time building and analyzing arguments, that you've spent time listening to other people, answering questions and asking questions, presenting your ideas both in written and oral work. So that's a big part of our classroom experience, is raising your hand and being like, I am so confused. Why do you think that? So we spend a lot of time in that sort of civil discourse environment at Hillsdale. So what it comes down to is this core is about a third to a half of your time at the college, depending on how many classes you might wish to take above and beyond your major or elective credits. And so these 18 classes get paired with becoming proficient in your major. So a few that you'll notice are classes like Western theology that I mentioned before, great books classes, biology, chemistry, fine arts, US Constitution. So this is really, I think, the common ground of campus of what all of the students are experiencing for the bulk of their freshman year. And then they kind of diversify once they get into their majors as well. Now the next slide talks about majors, and that's really the other 2/3 to a half of your time at Hillsdale. We do have more than 40 different programs between majors, minors, pre-professional programs. You can see a list there, but our most popular are economics, English, biology, financial management, history, mathematics, and politics. So we're sort of a big tie for the top 5 most popular majors. Other popular programs outside of that are pre-law and pre-med advising programs that you can pair with any major. My husband did a pre-engineering program at Hillsdale with math and physics as his double major. We have students who do our journalism program, students who study languages as well. So there are 40 plus different options at Hillsdale. And we really believe in that small classroom environment. So the average class size is 15, For every 9 students on campus, there's 1 full-time faculty member. And I can personally tell you as a Hillsdale grad that the professors are wildly accessible. So my biggest class in my 4 years was a 28-person chemistry class, and my smallest class was a 4-person English class. And that's not for everyone. You know, it's hard to hide in the back row and not do the reading when you're in a 4-person class. I get that. But I think for someone who likes to be available to the professor, that you want to be able to raise your hand, meet with them in office hours, that you want to be able to really talk to your classmates, collaborate on group projects. Hillsdale really is about that small learning community. Now, another thing we offer are research and internship opportunities. So you'll see an example list on the next slide here. Some of the research experiences include, we have over 400 acres in northern Michigan for outdoor research. So biology, fish research, forestry research, other botany research, etc. So over 400 acres that we own there, and there's student housing and cabins. It's a popular place for biology and biochemistry and chemistry students to spend the weekends and their summers doing research. We also have a human cadaver lab on campus if you're a pre-med student, so a really good undergraduate research experience. We also have an economics library on campus for research. So if you are an econ nerd, you may have heard of Ludwig von Mises. He donated his personal library to the college. So research isn't just about the sciences. But I think one of my favorite examples of research is that some of our biology professors travel to Africa every few years and take students along with them. It's typically a 2 or 3 year rotation, and they'll go to places like Tanzania, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and then they track and work with wildlife conservation efforts there, and then bring research back to campus to our genetics lab. So right now they're working on African lion DNA, for example. We also have partnerships with different internship programs, like a pre-vet internship at a zoo in Omaha, Nebraska over the summer. We have the Washington Hillsdale internship program. That's been around since the 1970s. And so students can go to Washington, D.C., be a full-time Hillsdale student there, do 2 or 3 classes with our faculty in D.C., and get credit for an internship. So we'll see students intern with members of Congress, Smithsonian museums, think tanks, media groups, the White House, government agencies, lobbying firms, education and student teaching opportunities, etc. So it's a really great opportunity if you want to get that DC experience for part of your college years. And then we also have a Dow journalism program, which works with students to have media internships. We have a radio station on campus, and we have a top 5 ranked college newspaper in America on campus. So a lot of students are passionate about journalism as well. And then study abroad, we have exchange programs to universities in Scotland, England, France, Germany, Spain, and Argentina if you want to spend a traditional semester or summer abroad. So becoming a St. Andrews University student in Scotland, for example. And then we have shorter Hillsdale programs that go with our professors and our students, so a smaller cohort group, and that'll go on 2 to 3 week long trips to places like Greece, Israel, Italy, Poland, England, France, etc. So some of the same countries, but some other ones as well for additional study abroad opportunities. Now on the next slide, you'll see a list of some of our example graduate placements. So the top list shows in the last 3 graduating classes, what were some of the master's, PhD, law school, medical schools that our students went to. And I have friends who've done several of these. And then you'll also see a list of some of the biggest employers for our students from the last 3 graduating classes. Overall, Hillsdale does have a 98% placement rate. So that means that within 6 months of graduation, 98% of Hillsdale students are working full-time or are in graduate school. And typically that breakdown is about 75% into full-time employment, about 20% into a master's, PhD, or other pre-professional program like med school, dental school, and then about 5% into full-time volunteer service or military service. So Peace Corps, Marine Corps, that idea. I think the strong placement rate comes, again, from that liberal arts foundation of communication skills, critical thinking skills, research abilities, paired with the accessibility of our professors, our career services team, and the proficiency of your major. And I also want to underscore that these aren't just any jobs our students have. Over 90% say that their first job is directly related to their end career goals. So it's a good way to sort of start your life after Hillsdale. Now, I don't want Hillsdale to sound like it's just about academics. I know I'm a nerd, but that doesn't mean all of our students are. So with that being said, I want to talk a little bit about student life. So when I'm not in classes, what would my life be like at Hillsdale? Now, because we're a predominantly out-of-state population, it's a very active and engaged campus. We're also in a rural location. So we're in a small town of about 10,000 people, and we're a small college, about 1,400. And so a lot of campus is focused on bringing student events to campus. So yes, you can go to the county fair and the farmers market and go get coffee and do karaoke in town. I like to think that Hillsdale looks a lot like Stars Hollow from Gilmore Girls, if you're familiar with the show. But also we bring a lot of student events. So we have annual traditions like Founding Fest, which celebrates the founding of Hillsdale, with like a student battle of the bands, and with carnival rides, and with food trucks. We have Central Hallapalooza, which is our end of the school year college-wide carnival. Think Grease, but no choreographed music and dance routines. And so there's a lot of these student traditions. Our student activities board hosts over 40 student-wide events every year, everything from cooking competitions to dances to open mic nights. And think about our student activities board as being like the ASB at your high school. Now, other things to become involved with: residence life. All freshmen live on campus. Overall, about 74% live on campus. Many students work on campus as well. It's about 60% of our students are employed in the cafeteria, the library, the maintenance crew, sorting mail in the mailroom, etc. And then in terms of clubs, there's over 100 different student organizations that you can join. Some of our newest and more popular clubs are things like Outdoor Recreation Club that goes camping and hiking, International Club, Ping Pong Club, Disney Fan Club is a new one that's gotten pretty popular. So there are lots of things to become involved with, along with political clubs like College Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, as well as faith-based clubs like Hillsdale Christian Fellowship, Hillsdale Catholic Society, Lutheran Society, our Jewish Student Association. And then Greek life is a big part of campus too. So about a quarter of our students join a fraternity or sorority. Athletics, even though we're a small school, we are NCAA Division II. So about a quarter of our students are student athletes. We have 14 D2 national teams, along with 16 club and 11 intramural sports at Hillsdale. 40% of our students are involved with the performing arts in some way, whether that's music, theater, or dance. And that could be doing the lights, sewing the costumes, or being the first chair cellist in the orchestra. Debate and mock trial teams are really popular. Student publications like our newspaper, our literary magazine, our radio station. And then one of my favorite and proudest parts of campus is community service. So Princeton Review does rank us top 5 in the nation for students who volunteer the most in their community. And an average Hillsdale student volunteers over 70 hours each school year, even though we do not require community service. And I think that just sort of shows the culture and the heart of the place. Now on the next slide, I should say, you'll see our honor code. So the text listed there is our honor code. And as I said before, we're a Christian school that doesn't require students to be Christian. And so when you don't sign a statement of faith, we instead ask you to sign this honor code. So there's no like statement of faith of this is exactly what it means that Hillsdale's Christian and you need to buy into that. Instead, we say we're a Christian college and we think that Christianity should ask you to be honorable, honest, dutiful, and respectful. And we think that that's the commitment we should ask for from our students. So every student signs the honor code before their classes start, and people take it really seriously, whether that's academic honesty. I've had professors give me take-home exams where they said, here's the essay prompt, set yourself a timer, you've got 3 hours to answer it whenever you feel like it. I trust you to do this. Or whether it's that students don't lock their dorm rooms, or they save a spot to eat in the cafeteria by dropping their wallet or their iPhone on the table. So it's very much a trusting community. I actually lost my wallet my freshman year, and it had my driver's license and my social security card and my credit card and my dorm room key inside. And it was terrifying because it was like my first month on campus. And a week later, I get an email from the librarian. Someone found your wallet stuffed in a chair in the library. It fell out of your backpack or something. Come and pick it up from my desk whenever you have a minute. And everything was still inside. And that's just very much my experience at Hillsdale, is it being this trusting community of, you know, people who want to commit to this honor code together. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the application and scholarship process. So as I said before, we are a Common App school, or we do have our own institute institutional application online at hillsdale.edu. As you can see, more than 95% of students are going to receive some form of financial aid package from Hillsdale. So what that looks like is that the average student is getting more than half of their cost of attendance covered. The average student is over $21,000 in scholarship. Roughly half of our students will graduate debt-free, and we offer 3 types of scholarship. So the first is merit. That is based upon how strong is your application within our total pool, and the admissions office is who awards merit scholarships. The second is talent, and that's because you're being recruited for your athletic, visual art, music, or theater ability. And then the third type is need-based aid, which is again where you'd apply directly with Hillsdale or through the CSS profile. Very similar methodology to the FAFSA. We just don't receive the FAFSA technically, and so you'll be able to be considered for additional need-based aid. And my last 3 tips of how to maximize your scholarship consideration at Hillsdale that I hope is helpful for other schools too, is to meet priority deadlines. For us, the priority scholarship deadline is January 1st. And so we give our best scholarship consideration to students who meet that deadline. The second is that you want to focus on carefully proofreading your essays and those Hillsdale supplemental short answers. So we want to see that you spent time crafting your content and perfecting your execution. And then the third thing that you can do is that admissions interview. So I'd say that's applicable to other schools because you want to meet their deadlines and demonstrate your interest. So thank you so much for your time. I know I'm the last one to go. So I will put Hillsdale's admissions interest form in the chat box here too in a moment. But thank you so much for sharing your time with all of us today.
I was talking and you couldn't hear me. Kelly, thank you so much, and to Amanda and to Claire. And we are going to open it up to Q&A in just a minute. Every time I sit through these presentations, I just want to go back to school. I want to go to this college, and I want to go to this college, and I want to go to this college. So it's so exciting, and there's so much out there for you to, as you can see, that is available to you. And every school is just a little bit different. Every school has just a little bit different of a vibe and a culture. And so taking advantage of all of those things is it's just an exciting time in your life. So with that, my job is to help you get there. So, and there, as you have heard from all 3 of our presenters today, it's really important to understand that your application is looked at holistically, right? So you're not just a number. And with the way things have changed for this year, there's going to be an aspect, there's going to be a really, one that everybody has thought has been one of the biggest aspects is the ACT and the SAT, traditionally, is no longer going to be part of that, that application process. So then how are these decisions going to be made? And you've heard it over and over and over again. And I say it to my students all the time. The pieces of the application that you have so much control over, and I think Amanda said it so well, is like, you have so much more control than you think you do. And, is your personal statement, your demonstrated interest, your supplemental essays. They really do want to know who you are, because they want to know how are you going to fit into their community. So I have different ways of getting that done. And I understand that there, affordability issues for everybody from here to here, from all the way to the bottom to the very top. So I have different ways of making that happen. The most affordable option that I have is the masterclass, which is basically an online once a month group session that I have with students. And every month will be one important topic that is relevant to that specific time in the application process that we will spend working on. So, whether it be an essay or meeting the deadlines or whatever the case may be for that specific month, we work on that. We'll be in a private Facebook group. You'll be in there with like-minded students. So it's like being in an AP class or an honors class, so that everybody is working hard to meet the same goal. And then I will be part of that group also. So as I see you guys discuss, I can, chime in every once in a while and whatnot. So that is the least expensive of the options that I have for the, process. It is not a one-on-one service, but it does allow you to meet the deadlines that you need. Keeps you organized. These are all the various things that I have on the slide there that that is part of this package. And then I have a comprehensive monthly package, and there are 3 levels to that also. So there's a D3 standard package, a D2 select package, and a D1 Ivy package. And those are comprehensive. These are for my upperclassmen. So it starts June of your as you're a rising senior. Until May of until your decision day. And usually it goes until after that, sometime into June or whatever, that I'm still working with my students. And again, that is that one-on-one. There are mandatory meetings, depending on which package or which, option, the D3, D1, or D2s that you get. There's a number of mandatory meetings that we have per month, and we work on all the various aspects of the application, right? So we're going to look at we're going to do interest profile assessment. We're going to do academic resume. We're going to do educational and career path objectives. We'll work on your college essay, letters of recommendation. We'll look at financial planning, looking at where we can figure out where to get you that merit aid and what that looks like. Is it FAFSA or CSS profile or both? Your extracurricular and summer activities, and then, prep for your standardized tests. And, again, we don't know where that is right now. A lot of schools have decided to go test optional for this coming year. ACT and SAT College Board have not decided yet on what that's going to look like. A lot of that has to do with our government and where we are in the world, and the fact of whether or not we're going to be able to have test centers that are open. So that is, again, those things are up in the air, but whether that is, something that needs to be prepped for or not, that is part of that comprehensive package. And then I have comprehensive packages for my underclassmen, and they are set up the same way. It's D3 standard, D2 select, and D1 Ivy. And those are set up by semester. So you're looking at working with me for one semester, during the first semester and during the second semester. And how often we meet and what we cover has to do with the level of the package that you get. So once again, those are, they range in price depending on which one. And so there's affordability for everyone in order to get the pieces and the support that you need in order to do all of these things that these presenters are looking for in order for you to have that most competitive application when you are applying. So I have a couple questions that you should all have a Q&A box there that you see. Go ahead and type right into it. I do see that Claire, Amanda, and Kelly have posted their links. I will actually have these links and I will put them in to the recording that you will get sent after the end of you'll get it sent tomorrow. It'll be an automatic email that'll go out with the recording, and these links will be in there in case you are missing them in the chat box, but they are in the chat box. You can click on them, you can cut and paste them into your browser. So I'm going to start off with a question, and then all of you please engage in the Q&A. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to hear your questions, and Kelly, Claire, and Amanda all want to answer your questions for you. So the first one that I'm going to ask is actually, there was a great article yesterday in Inside Higher Ed. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. It was Mixed and Uncertain Admissions Year. Did any of you read that or see it? So the one question that I have coming at me from parents and students is, based on what you're seeing right now, because you either have all had your admissions decision day happen, or it's May 1st, June 1st, or whatever, based on that and the current deferment or lack thereof, depending, what is the impact on the admissions for the class of 21 and 22? Do you think that is going to be? Whoever would like to pipe in first.
I can jump in first. I do know that, what size of a class compared to the normal size of a class a college might bring in is varying. And I think as we get closer to the fall, if more colleges have to go online versus, right now we're all planning on offering that in-person traditional but modified experience for safety purposes. I think that'll shift a little bit more. I think, speaking for Hillsdale, we had a strong May 1, and so we have not yet gone to our wait list or made any changes to our admissions process. And I think that implies to me that further years will look very similar. But I was also talking to some other colleagues about there's this fear that there might not be as much room for people moving forward. If a lot of students don't come this fall and deferred for a year, and then they decide that, they're going to come that year, there are going to be as many spaces available for the entering fall 2021 seniors. And I think it's good to keep in mind that colleges have beds and they have sizes that they want to maintain and they have seats that they want to have students in. And so I think for most colleges, even if they have students who defer a year, I think they'll just be playing catch up at that point. I don't think it'll change how many seats they have available to the fall 2021 entering class. But that's my impression from talking to some of the other colleges and knowing Hillsdale.
I think that's a good point. And I would just like to add that colleges and universities are talking about this fear that students have. We recognize that this is a fear, and the absolute last thing that we want to do is have your class experience a much more difficult admission cycle because of this. So colleges and universities are thinking about ways that they're going to go about this. I can say from TCU, we are planning a full in-person fall schedule. So we have not seen those requests come through. We have not seen the deferral requests from students. We've had questions about our process, but we have not seen those requests come through. So at this point, it's not looking like it's going to be an issue, but I know that we as an institution, and I've talked with other institutions, and I'm sure my other colleagues can comment on this, we don't want you to be affected by this in the way that I think you're afraid that it's going to affect you. So we care about you guys too.
Yeah, and I'll speak specifically about Santa Clara because both Kelly and Amanda shared some great insights as to what colleges in general are thinking. At Santa Clara, we are, as I mentioned, we're a quarter system school. So our school year actually starts at the end of September. So we have more time before our fall term even begins. So we have not made the decision of what our model is going to look like. Our intention, of course, is to be on campus, but we are also working with our state and county health departments to make sure that our students are safe and healthy first and foremost. That being said, something that we have noticed is that most students who are reaching out to talk about a deferment option don't want to defer for a whole year. They just want to defer for a quarter and then maybe start mid-year. We actually don't offer that currently. We are exploring what that option could look like in light of the current situation. But for students who would be coming into Santa Clara's community in later years, so class of 2021, class of 2022, know that we still want to preserve your opportunities as well. Something else for Santa Clara, we're looking to grow. So we already, regardless of the current situation, we're looking each year to increase the number of seats that we have open and available to students. So for those students that are considering Santa Clara but would be coming in a few future years, know that we have the space for you and we're looking forward to you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to also, I don't have any questions coming in. So that means you guys did an amazing job answering all the questions. But you all touched on the personal statement in the essay. Each one of you touched on how that aspect is so important. So I have a couple questions then. So what are some qualities of a great personal statement that you've seen reading over the years?
I can start. I think that a huge benefit to reading a personal statement is when a student shows, not tells. So instead of saying like, I really value creativity or I consider myself a creative person, maybe beginning by walking me through something that you're, a project that you're proud of, or a skill that you've honed that you're proud of. So I find that students who choose to kind of show and almost just plot me right into their life instead of doing a long intro buildup and then telling me what they're going to tell me about, and then only having a little bit of the essay actually detailing what they care about. Going the show don't tell route for me always makes one stand out, and I just find myself more engaged.
I love that, and I would agree with that. I also think too that students worry so much about the topic that they're writing on. And maybe, Kelly, you mentioned Gilmore Girls, but I remember Gilmore Girls when Rory's thinking about the essay she's going to write, and she's so worried about the topic. But I have found that the simplest topics make the best essays, especially if they're genuinely about you. So it doesn't have to be that you're curing world hunger, or you've done the most exciting internship ever, or that you won the lacrosse championship, or anything like that. Sometimes it could just be a simple topic about something that's really valuable to you. And as long as it's genuine, and as long as you show us, it will shine through, and we'll remember that essay. And then we'll tell our colleagues, we're like, oh, we read this essay. I loved this student because of what they said in this essay. We really need them to be on our campus. So yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with both of those. I think showing versus telling, not just saying, oh, this matters to me, but like explaining why and how, and giving, some illustration of that. And yeah, absolutely what Amanda said too. I just think the only thing I would add is, I think, focusing on the remembering, as Claire said earlier too, remembering to make it about you, not just writing a story about someone that you love and forgetting to explain why that person matters to you, and not just, writing a book report about your favorite book, but remembering to answer the part of the prompt where it asks, like, how did this influence your life? So I think remembering to fully address the prompt, and how I think you should approach that essay is, what goal do I have for the admissions counselor to learn about me? Like, what is the takeaway I want them to have, that they know X to be true about me? And if that's that you are passionate about travel, or that you love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or that you want to find the cure for cancer, like, it could be anything. But knowing what your goal is and why that's important to how we see you on our college campus, that this is something that really informs why you're a good fit, like why you should be at our school, that, you're quirky, you're creative, you're motivated, you're driven, whatever it is. And then putting it down for a few days and coming back to it, or asking other people to help read it and being like, did I actually give the impression I wanted to? Like, did I answer that question? Did I tell them why I was writing this essay? And I definitely agree with Amanda, like the simple things sometimes I can think of. I literally read an essay that I still remember years later about a student who had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every single day for lunch the entire time she was ever in grade school. And so it's like this silly essay topic, it sounds like it, but it was such a cool, memorable essay because of what it said about her. So I think focusing on why you're telling us something, and not fearing that it has to be this Academy Award winning drama that you're writing.
Thank you. I agree. I as you were saying, thinking of one, there are a couple that come to my mind too. I had one, a young man write about the TV show Forged in Fire. Do you guys know that show? It's like where they do like welding and they make things, and it's like, who watches Forged in Fire, kind of thing. But it had to do with creation, like what he wanted to create and what he wanted to do, and how this TV show did that for him. And then I remember another one, which was, non-gender conforming, was a young man who crocheted and crocheted beanies for little babies. And that, that's not what guys do, or gender, like I said, conforming. And it was one of those ones that was about his wanting to help and wanting to do. And neither one of them had to do, like you said, with curing cancer, or, coming up with this new club or anything like that. It was just these things that they were passionate about, but it told so much about who they were and what they wanted to do with their future. And, like peanut butter and jelly and whatnot.
I love this, and I think it goes back to kind of what I tried to mention in my presentation, but that's where I like stumbled on my words, is that this is a great time in your application, especially this year when a lot of people have come to terms with their own interests and hobbies and things that make them passionate. This is a great place for you to display that. And I'm really excited to see what students are passionate about, even if it doesn't seem like the normal things that students put in their application. So as an admissions reader, when somebody writes in there that like I taught myself how to play guitar or I knit every weekend, I think that's so cool.
So that's great. Thank you. So that actually leads me to the other part. And I think Amanda, I mean, so Kelly, you touched on it, is like when to begin the essay or like where to go. You said, do it and then step away from it, walk away from it, give it a day or two, let it sit. And so if you don't give yourself the time to do that, right? So you write it, you want to step away from it, and then you want to come back to it, you want to revise it. It takes time. And that's just for the personal statement. That doesn't include the supplemental essays that each school is looking for. And you want to be able to step away and come back from each one of those. So from experience, can you tell when somebody hasn't put the time and energy into an essay when you sit down to read it?
Yes, I'll jump in first if that's okay. I think you can tell that it feels rushed, it feels hurried. And I think the biggest part of that, and a piece of advice I try to give students when they're working on their essays, is if you don't give yourself that distance, your brain and your eyes, you're going to read it the way you meant it. But when I read your writing, I have no idea what your intention was. And so I read what's actually there, not what my brain thinks is supposed to be there. And so if you use the wrong version of a word, or you have right-click thesaurus syndrome, you're using words to try to sound fancy, but they don't actually fit what you mean. You know, you have a one paragraph long run-on sentence. Those are things that you might not catch if you write and submit the same day, but if you're able to give yourself the distance to come back to it, you'll catch those things. And I always recommend that students read their essays out loud to themselves, because your ears will catch so many more mistakes than your eyes will.
Yeah, thank you. And adding to that too, editing is, I think, the most time intensive part of the process. And I also always tell students that you can have different people editing for different reasons. So maybe you have a parent or a teacher or a trusted individual edit just for your grammar and kind of making sure your schematics are great. But then you have a friend or someone who really knows you edit just for the content side of things. So what are you trying to say? Does it adequately represent your voice and what you mean to say? What Kelly was talking about with the auto editing, and we just read it as we meant it, that happens all the time, and it's going to happen for the rest of your life. So it's a good practice to get in the habit of having more sets of eyes read over it. Another thing that I also encourage my students to do in terms of self-editing, and you need to build time into this process, is starting with a word dump. Like starting the writing process can be so hard. And so just starting with a word dump, or a word vomit as I call it, and just getting all your ideas out on the page and stepping away, and then coming back to actually organize that into more of a semblance of a statement, stepping away again, and then going into the editing process. So allowing the time and the breathing room for all the different parts of the writing process, not just, okay, I'm going to set aside these 2 days and kind of bang it out. Something I will also admit that we notice, and it's not always the best reflection, we know that mistakes happen, but if I read an essay and a student specifically talks about another campus, then that just shows me kind of copying and pasting, not only looking over this essay or this supplement, but did they review their application in general? So those things, while of course it may not have been a poorly intentioned thing, we do notice that, and it does to us indicate a little bit less attention given to our application.
Amanda, you're shaking your head yes.
Yeah, you that was the best advice ever. Listen to what Kelly and Claire just said.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to do one more on essay writing. I think you all touched on it just a little bit, but maybe to reiterate, because I really think this is going to be something that's going to be seen across the applications. Common App actually has already designated a little portion of it, and making sure that if that's the route that you're going to take and this is what you want to do, being careful and intentional about what that's going to look like. And basically is that, should you write about coronavirus, and if you do, how to approach that, and why would it be really important to make that your personal statement? Do you see anything that would be like stand out that you would say, yes, absolutely, that would be the one topic that you would need to write about for this situation? I am advising my students to not go that route, because I can just see how many of those that you are possibly going to be reading. And really, although in students' lives at this point in time, this probably is the biggest thing that has ever happened to them. They're 17 years old, and this is probably the biggest event that's ever occurred in their life. So it is poignant to them. It's happening for them right now. Like I said, I'm going to advise as much as I can that they don't take that route, and to stick with who you are, what are you passionate about. Let the admissions people hear about who you are and what you want. But with that, what are your suggestions? You're all still on mute. Thank you, Kelly.
Amanda, do you want to go first?
You can go first.
Okay. So you'll hear admissions counselors talk about how like there are some topics that we just get a lot more than others. And I like to say there's no such thing as a bad topic, but if you choose some of the common ones, you need to make sure that you like show us, you really need to be showing us something about you. And I'd say some of the more common ones are like death, divorce, sports injuries, mission trips. And the majority of them have like a very predictable pattern. Like mission trip, for example, I went on a mission trip, I came home, I was really glad to see my iPhone again. And like, that's not a very insightful thing to tell us about yourself. It doesn't really tell us anything or show us especially anything about you. So I think if you want to avoid falling into the predictable, what I expect to be the predictable coronavirus topic of, it was hard to be at, like not be with my friends, I missed my baseball season, that's the grand recollection. So I would say if you're going to go that route, then I would try to avoid it. But what I would say when it makes sense is just like any of those things, sports injury, mission trip, death, divorce, if it's the catalyst for growth for you, then it could be a really good topic. So if this experience has taught you something, wow, I never realized how I never asked my parents any questions about what they were like when they were my age. And I learned this crazy thing about our family background, and that showed me so much. And now I appreciate my parents differently. And this is what I want to do now because of it. Or I've been inspired to do ABC. I started knitting beanies for the, prenatal unit, the newborn baby unit at the hospital. And so this is now my passion and I want to start this nonprofit. Like if it is a catalyst for change, you learn something new about yourself, and that's probably informing why you want to go to college now, then it could be a good essay topic. But I would say if it's just, this was hard and I got bored at home and I have Zoom fatigue, then I would discourage the topic. I hope that didn't come across too strong, but I think with those topics, you want to make sure it's showing something different about you, a growth pattern. Like I said, it was a catalyst for change in you.
Thank you, Kelly.
And Kelly, that was perfect. I would just say, especially the Common Apps section for the COVID-19 is a space for students to explain challenges that they might have faced with this. The essay is a chance for us to get to know the personal essay, personal statement. It's called so many different things. It's a chance for us to get to know you as a student. And so just remember that there is a difference, and where the Common App has put that in there, that's for students to say, my school has gone past no fail or credit, no credit. So we have that context when we review. It's a place to give us context. So just keep in mind that there is a little bit of a difference between those, and that's why the Common App chose to put that in there, so we can have that space for context. A lot of other applications will have what we call an additional information section. So it's a section for students to add any additional information that will give us context into those moments in a student's life. And that would be a good place for students to share what their school policy might have gone with as far as like what COVID-19 will look like, or if there was a challenge in your academic record or anything like that. That's where that's for. But the personal statement and the essay, that's just such a special place for you as a student to advocate for yourself. And I yield to what Kelly said about as a catalyst for growth. That's a great place to put that.
Thank you, Amanda. Claire? You had mentioned the additional section being the most underutilized piece of the Common App process.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like Amanda just touched on it, there is that space for that context. And it's also a great way for a student to maximize their word count, because you don't get, unlimited words on your application to tell us about yourself. So utilize the spaces for context to free up the space in your personal statement. Speaking to kind of deciding when to or if to talk about COVID-19, both Kelly and Amanda made really amazing points, and jumping on of just reiterating that you should be focusing on what you've done or how you've responded. And this can kind of go to any of those essay topics or the common essay topics that were mentioned. A lot of times I've noticed this trend, both as an admission counselor and then as a high school counselor reading student essays that were going to a variety of schools. This idea that I termed, which is not the best term for it, but kind of almost like the Depression Olympics, and students wanting to have a really sad story to share and thinking that was their ticket in. And look at how I've struggled and look at what's happened to me. And that was it. And the reality is that's not true. As an admission counselor, I want to see, how did you respond? What did you do with what you were given? What did you do within your context to grow, to challenge, to change, all of those things. And so if COVID-19 is the thing you really want to write about, it better be about 10% or less of the actual statement that tells me what happened to you, and then 90% what you did because of it, or what you were inspired to do, or learn about yourself, or change, or talk about, or challenge, right? So for COVID-19, as was mentioned, there's already going to be space in the application to tell us how you were impacted. When deciding if it's the right topic for your personal statement, it really only should be if you had kind of a dramatic change afterwards, or are able to tell us about what it revealed to yourself about yourself and where you plan to go forward with that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just going to open the Q&A box and make sure that I am not missing anything here, which I am not. I'm going to leave it at that. I think we've covered so much today. I can't thank you all enough for being part of this presentation, and for the students, and for the parents. I know there are parents on here too, and for giving so much information about your universities, your institutions, what you have to offer. Actually, I have one more question. I think you all touched really quick, and I don't remember, Claire, if you did or didn't, with regards to scholarships and the ACT and the SAT being attached to that. I think Amanda and Kelly, you both said that it wasn't going to be in consideration for admission or scholarship consideration. And I know, Claire, you did say that it wasn't going to be for admission. How is that going to work for scholarships at Santa Clara? Same?
Yeah, great question. Yes, same. So at Santa Clara, when you apply, your application for admission actually doubles as your scholarship application. So all students are automatically considered. And so test optional also applies to scholarship consideration. They're not.
Okay, good. I know that that's not the case for all the schools. And so that, some merit aid is still reliant on, program entry and whatnot. Speaking of pre-professional program entry, Amanda, I know you guys at TCU have a great direct nursing program. I've had a couple students go through it. Is that going to be contingent admission into direct nursing? Will be contingent on a test score, or will that also still be test optional?
That's a really great question. We're moving for the test optional route for the class of 2021 because we just don't know if students are going to have access to exams. So it's becoming an access question. So from what I have been informed from our leadership, it will not require a test score. So we will still be test optional for our direct entry nursing program.
Okay. All right, and same for Hillsdale and Santa Clara with regards to any specialty programs and with test optional.
Yeah, so
I know, Kelly, you said you were still waiting.
We're kind of digging our feet in. We're still like on a holding pattern. We're circling the airport, but we haven't landed yet. Yeah, so we'll continue to modify. And our merit scholarships, so like Claire said, application to Hillsdale is an application to be considered for merit scholarship. Every single admitted student is considered for a merit scholarship. And so they're not predicated. It's not, you know, oh, find where in the rubric where my GPA and test score intersect and I'm promised or not promised a certain amount of money. So if we move towards a test optional process, which we'll be deciding once we know if tests are going to be available this fall, we will also, test optional students would be given the equal consideration for merit scholarship.
Okay. All right. I think that was my last little thing that was going on in the back of my head. So thank you again. All our information is on the screen there. My email address, Amanda's email address, Kelly's email address, and Claire's email address. And you can reach out to us by sending us an email. I promise you they will reply to you. I sent them emails. They replied to me. So they will reply to you. And I will do the same. So if you have any questions that we didn't answer or any questions that are specific to the school that you felt that you didn't want to bring up during the webinar and you want to speak to Kelly, Claire, or Amanda, you are more than welcome to reach out to them. I'm sure that they would be happy to respond to you and tell you more about their universities and what they have to offer. And I am going to go ahead and I'm going to end it at that. And thank you again, Kelly, Claire, and Amanda. Thank you for coming and spending time and sharing with us.
Thank you for hosting.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.